If you're traveling to China in the near future, then you have to watch this video. Today, I'm gonna share 10 things that you should not do in China, and it may surprise you. Culture is a hard thing to define. I felt you just get the vibe if you stay there long enough. When I grew up in China, I thought everyone in the universe is eating using chopsticks. That's the only way I have seen when I grew up. Until many years later when I was older, I realized there are people in other parts of the country use forks and knives instead of chopsticks. So today, I have taken my 34 years experience of being Chinese and compiled into a list of 10 things that you should not do in China. So when you are visiting in China, you don't need to worry about the cultural etiquette. Number 1, drinking alone. This one I didn't know either, because when I grew up, my parents didn't drink. I was visiting my friend from the north, and we were in a party and took my first sip. Then she stopped me. She really go, no, don't do that. Here, it's not allowed. If you want to drink a beer or any alcohol, you have to cheer with other people's first before you take your sip. I have no clue and I was embarrassed. Later of the party, I didn't notice anyone who want to have a sip of the alcohol. They would have a cheer with the people they're talking with or any other people around them first before having the sip. If you're a tourist traveling to China, please don't feel pressured. You have to cheer with others. I feel this is just a common rule among Chinese when they are drinking with their friends. So no pressure there. Please feel free to enjoy your beer as alone as you want. Number 2 is don't split the bill. I don't think it applies for tourists, but if you ever seen 3 men in the restaurants wrestling to get the bill in front of the waitress, don't panic. They probably just in the process of trying to fight who pay for the bill. It doesn't mean they're really fighting. A lot of times I feel this is just a dance that between them to show that they all have strong interest to pay for the bill. Among me and my friends, we never split the bill in China. Whenever we eat out, we usually take turn to pay for the meal. And it's so interesting, whenever I go back to US and hang out with my Chinese friends in US, we would switch back to split the bill mode. I think in China, the younger generation are starting to split the bill, but I don't think the older generations would do that. Honestly, in my life, I have never seen my dad split the bill with his friends. So when you travel to China and see people fighting to get the bill, don't be shocked. They're just playing the dance. Number 3 is be careful where you sit in the round table. This is something my parents told me when I was very young, which is in China, if you're eating in a round table with many people, the spot that is the farthest away from the door is the most honored spot, and it's usually reserved for the most senior person or the most important guest. I don't think this is like a hard written requirement somewhere, but when I grew up, I always see that spot usually is for my grandpa whenever we have a family dinner together. And usually the spot that is closest to the door is the person who paid for the bill. I think somehow this is a common sense among Chinese. I would believe majority of the Chinese know this rule, but I don't know how it was generated. I don't think it is a hard-coded requirement. But if you're visiting China with Chinese friends, please don't feel pressured. Sit wherever you want. I don't think the rules applies to non-Chinese. And number 4 is don't tip at restaurants. Chinese don't tip, and China doesn't have tipping culture. Also, there's no tax adding on top of the menu price. So if you see the menu said $10, then you just need to pay $10. If you try to tip, I think the waitress or the waiter may be a little confused just because it's not expected. If you left the money on the table, I think they would assume you forget about your money.
If the journey costs 65 yuan, I've been leaving 70 and saying thank you and getting out of the taxis. And I noticed that some of them were shouting at me as I walked out. Actually, they were asking to return that 5 yuan back to me.
But if you make it very clear that this is a tip for thanks for their service, I don't think they will be offended. And I wasn't familiar with adding tax and the tip on top of the menu price when I first came to US. The very first time I buy a meal in US in the airport, the burger was $9.50 and I gave her a $10 bill and she kept telling me that this is not enough. And I remember I was very confused because it's $9.50 on the menu and I gave you $10. Why you keep asking for more money? But in China, you don't need to worry about it because if the menu said it's $10, that's all you need to pay. Number 5 is don't stick the chopsticks upright in the rice. This is also something I don't know why, but when I was a kid, if I do this, my mom would say, don't do it, put the chopsticks aside. And back then, I don't know why, I just do what mom tells me to do. But now when I research about it, it's because it looks like the incense at the funeral and it may bring bad luck. I would say this is a pretty common sense in China. So if you ever travel to China, you probably would not see that. But if you want to do this, I mean, feel free to. I don't think it's a big deal now. Number 6 is friends and families actually don't hug. I feel this one is very interesting because when I grew up, I rarely hug with my parents or my friends. Even though of course, we love each other, we appreciate each other, but whenever we see each other, we just don't hug. It's not a thing. After I have lived in US for many years, I got used to hugging friends when we haven't seen each other for a long time. And whenever I visit China right now, it's always funny because whenever I see my friend, I want to hug them and I hug them and I can feel it's getting a little weird. It's like, shall we hug? Shall we not hug? And I can feel she's also a little like, oh, okay, we're hugging now. So kind of like a different vibe. I don't think Chinese will get offended if you want to hug them. It's just a little uncommon to see that. And I feel personal space is a very interesting topic because you would assume Chinese really care about personal space. But whenever you go streets, waiting in the line, people are really close to each other. I grew up with standing in line, people very close to each other. I got used to it. But once I came to US, I really enjoy everybody giving like large space between each other. So whenever I go back to China, then now I feel the person behind me on the line is like way too close to me that I feel like he or she may just want to push me further. Number 7 is don't give umbrella or clock as a gift. In Chinese, umbrella sounds like 伞, which also could mean break up. And the clock sounds like 钟, also could mean saying goodbye for your passed away relative. So usually it is bring bad luck if you want to give the clock or umbrella. I don't know where I heard it. I think it's when we were in high school and try to buy gift for boyfriend, maybe. And I heard it from my friend, I think. I don't think it's a really rigid rule that you absolutely cannot give that as a gift. And I would definitely not be offended if you buy me a gift that is umbrella or a clock. But that's just more like a common saying among the Chinese. Number 8 is do not use black and white picture or put the white flowers on head. In China, usually a zoom in profile picture that is black and white, usually used at the funeral. When I first came to US, I see a lot of companies use black and white picture for their company profile. And I was really shocked. I don't think Chinese would use black and white picture for their profile. And the white flower on head usually happens when you have a close relative passed away in the family. But I think that's more like for ancient time. I don't think right now the Chinese are doing it. At least the usually white flower on head means that. When my parents visited me in US for the first time, we were in a cruise and we take some photographer. All the pictures of our family pictures are all black and white. I remember I was very shocked when the first time I see it, but I have to say that it's very nice because when it's black and white, your focus is all more on the person instead of the color, the clothes they wear, or the color of the background. So I really enjoyed that picture and I actually framed it, put it in my house. So I don't think it's like a rigid requirement that absolutely no. It's just more like a common practice among the Chinese. Number 9, you need to remember that is don't wear shoes inside other people's house. When I grew up, this is the only way I see, which is whenever you go home or you go other people's house, you take your outside shoes off and you wear an indoor slipper because Chinese think the outside is dirty, so the outside shoe is dirty. When I first came to US, I was shocked that everybody just wear the same shoes inside and outside. I have to say I slowly adapt to that habit because my son has his toys all over the living room. So whenever I walk in the living room barefoot, I always hurt my feet by stepping on his teeny tiny toys. So I now get used to wear shoes inside of the house. But whenever I visit China, I definitely remember take my shoes off before enter the house. And if you're visiting a Chinese friend at their house, I also suggest you take your shoes off before entering. And number 10 is don't call elderly their name directly. I don't know if this is a culture difference or just in China. If I am meeting an older person, no matter they're my relative or just strangers, I would not directly call their name. I usually call Uncle John or Auntie Anna instead of John or Anna. In China, if I call an elderly person their name directly, it will be considered rude and impolite. I think it's more like in US, they answer yes sir or yes ma'am as a way of polite. And another thing for elderly in China is that if we are eating with group of family, I would not start picking up my chopsticks if the eldest person haven't started eating. All this information are just my personal experience and my personal thoughts that I want to share with you all. It does not mean it's a hard-coded requirement. And if you did any of these things, it doesn't mean you will get in trouble. I actually think most of the items I explained here is just a saying among the Chinese, but even Chinese are not following it. So please don't have any pressure if you have to visit China. And trust me, Chinese are very nice and China is a great country to travel. If you want to know more tips about how to travel to China pleasantly, please click the link down below where I upload all the free tips about how to travel to China pleasantly.